Before the gods could find immortality, they first released a poison powerful enough to destroy all creation. Before goddess Lakshmi rose from the cosmic ocean, before the nectar of eternal life appeared, before Lord Vishnu took the enchanting form of Mohini, there was a moment when the entire universe stood on the edge of destruction, and only one divine being stepped forward to save it: Lord Shiva. This is the ancient and extraordinary story of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean of milk. A story of pride, loss, cooperation, temptation, sacrifice, and the truth that before life gives us nectar, it often makes us face poison first. Long ago, the heavens were ruled by the Devas, the celestial beings led by Indra, king of Svarg. Indra possessed splendor, authority, and power. His mount was Airavat, the magnificent white elephant. Around him stood the wealth and glory of heaven. But prosperity can sometimes create pride. One day, the great sage Durvasa encountered Indra and presented him with a sacred garland, a gift deserving reverence. Indra accepted it, but instead of treating it with devotion, he casually placed it upon Airavat. The elephant, disturbed by the fragrance and the bees surrounding it, threw the garland onto the ground. To Indra, it may have seemed like a small mistake. To sage Durvasa, it was an act of arrogance. Durvasa was furious. He saw that Indra had forgotten humility. Power had made the king of heaven careless. And so the sage pronounced a terrible curse. The devs would lose their strength, their fortune, and their divine brilliance. Slowly, the glory of heaven began to fade. The devs weakened. Their confidence vanished. Their armies could no longer stand against their enemies, the Asuras. The Asuras, powerful and ambitious, seized their opportunity. Under their rising strength, the devs were defeated, and the balance of the universe began to shift. Desperate and broken, Indra and the devs turned toward the one who preserves cosmic order, Lord Vishnu. The devs approached Lord Vishnu and begged for help. They had lost everything. Their power was gone. Their enemies were stronger than ever, but Vishnu did not promise them an easy victory. Instead, he gave them a plan so difficult, so dangerous that it required them to cooperate with the very enemies who had defeated them. Deep within the cosmic ocean of milk lay Amrit, the nectar of immortality. To regain their strength, the devs would have to churn the ocean and bring the nectar to the surface, but they were too weak to do it alone. They would need the strength of the Asuras. The devs were stunned. Work with their enemies? Vishnu's message was clear. Sometimes, even opposing forces must work together before transformation can begin. The devs approached the Asuras with an offer. "Help us churn the ocean of milk," they said. "And when the nectar of immortality appears, we shall share it." The Asuras were immediately interested. What greater prize could there be than immortality itself? For a brief moment, sworn enemies stood together, united by one desire, Amrit. But churning an entire cosmic ocean required tools no ordinary beings could provide. They needed a churning rod vast enough to reach into the deepest waters. For this, they chose Mount Mandara, a gigantic, sacred mountain, and they needed a rope powerful enough to wrap around the mountain. For this, they called upon Vasuki, the mighty serpent king. The ocean was ready. The mountain was ready. The serpent was ready. And the greatest churning in creation was about to begin. Mount Mandara was placed in the center of the ocean of milk. Vasuki wrapped his immense body around it like a rope. The Asuras seized the serpent's head, while the devs held his tail. Then they pulled, back and forth, back and forth. The waters roared, the mountain turned. The ocean began to swirl with unimaginable force. But suddenly disaster struck. Mount Mandara had no foundation beneath it. The enormous mountain began to sink into the depths of the ocean. Without it, the churning would fail. Without the churning, there would be no nectar. And without the nectar, the devs had no hope. At that moment, Lord Vishnu intervened. He descended beneath the ocean in the form of a colossal tortoise. Kurma, the divine tortoise avatar. Deep below the waters, Lord Vishnu as Kurma placed Mount Mandara upon his mighty shell. The mountain became steady. The ocean calmed just enough for the task to begin again. Above, Devas and Asuras pulled Vasuki from opposite sides. Below, Vishnu silently carried the enormous burden upon his back. This was not a small act. It was the foundation of everything that followed. Without support, even the greatest effort collapses. With Kurma holding the mountain steady, the churning resumed. The waters frothed. The heavens trembled. The serpent strained. The mountains spun faster and faster. Everyone expected treasure. Everyone expected nectar. But the first thing to emerge from the ocean was not a blessing. It was horror. From the depths of the churning ocean arose a dark, terrifying poison called Hala Hala. Its fumes spread across the universe. The sky burned. The waters darkened. Living beings trembled in fear. This was no ordinary poison. It carried the power to destroy gods, Asurs, humans, animals, everything that existed. The devs panicked. The Asuras fled. The nectar they desired no longer mattered because there would soon be no universe left to enjoy it. With nowhere else to turn, everyone rushed to Mount Kailash. There sat Lord Shiva, the great ascetic, the compassionate protector, the one who remains calm even when creation itself is in chaos. The devs pleaded with him, "Mahadev, save us, save all existence." Lord Shiva looked upon the suffering of creation. He did not ask who had caused the disaster. He did not blame the devs. He did not condemn the Asuras. He simply chose to protect the universe. Shiva gathered the deadly Hala Hala poison and drank it. But before it could spread through his body, Goddess Parvati intervened, holding it in his throat so that its destructive force would go no further. The poison remained there, turning Shiva's throat deep blue. From that moment, he became known as Nilkanth, the blue-throated one. The universe was saved, not by ambition, not by strength, but by sacrifice. The one who desired nothing for himself accepted the greatest pain for everyone else. And only after the poison had been contained could the search for nectar continue. Once the danger had passed, the devs and Asuras returned to the ocean. They took their positions again. They pulled Vasuki. Mount Mandara turned upon the shell of Kurma. The ocean of milk churned once more. And now, one by one, extraordinary treasures began to appear. From the shining waters came Surbi, the sacred wish-giving cow. Then emerged Uchchai-Shravas, the majestic celestial horse. Next came Airavat, the divine white elephant who would once again become associated with Indra. Then came the radiant Kaustuba jewel, destined to adorn Lord Vishnu. The ocean that had first released destruction was now releasing wonders. But its most beautiful gift had not yet appeared. The waters became luminous. Lotuses seemed to bloom across the cosmic ocean. And from its center rose Goddess Lakshmi, the divine embodiment of prosperity, beauty, abundance, and auspiciousness. The devs gazed in wonder. The sages offered prayers. The heavens seemed to brighten with her arrival. Many sought her favor, for wherever Lakshmi resides, fortune and harmony follow. But Goddess Lakshmi looked upon all assembled beings and chose Lord Vishnu. She placed the garland of acceptance around him and took her place beside the preserver of the universe. The meaning was profound. Fortune had abandoned heaven when pride took over. Now, after humility, struggle, and sacrifice, prosperity returned. Yet the main prize still remained hidden in the ocean. The nectar had not yet appeared. The Devs and Asuras continued churning. Their bodies were tired. Their minds were fixed on one final prize. Then, suddenly, from the ocean emerged a magnificent divine figure carrying a golden vessel. It was Dhanvantari, associated in Hindu tradition with healing and Ayurveda, and in his hands was the object everyone had been waiting for, the pot of Amrit, the nectar of immortality. For a brief second, the entire universe seemed to pause. Then the Asuras moved first. They rushed forward, seized the pot of Amrit and carried it away. The Devs watched helplessly. After everything they had endured, the curse, the defeat, the mountain, the poison, the nectar was now in the hands of their enemies. Once again, they turned to Lord Vishnu. And once again, Vishnu had a plan. The Asuras gathered around the pot of nectar. But they soon began arguing. Who should drink first? Who deserved more? Who could be trusted? Their alliance began collapsing under the weight of greed. At that moment, a breathtakingly beautiful woman appeared before them. She was graceful, radiant, and mysterious. The Asuras forgot their arguments and stared in amazement. They did not realize that this enchanting figure was Lord Vishnu in the form of Mohini. Mohini smiled and said, "You are fighting over this nectar. Give it to me, and I shall distribute it fairly." Blinded by desire and confidence, the Asuras agreed. They handed the pot of immortality directly to Mohini, and with one decision, the fate of heaven changed again. Mohini arranged the Devs and Asuras into two separate rows. The Asuras waited eagerly, certain their turn would come. But Mohini began serving the nectar only to the Devs. One by one, the Devs received Amrit. Their lost strength returned. Their radiance returned. Their divine power awakened once more. The Asuras were so captivated by Mohini that at first they failed to understand what was happening. But one Asura saw through the deception. His name was Svarbhanu. He disguised himself as a Dev and slipped quietly into their row, sitting between Surya, the sun deity, and Chandra, the moon deity. When the nectar reached him, he drank it. For a moment, it seemed his trick had worked. But Surya and Chandra recognized the intruder. They immediately warned Mohini. Before the nectar could pass completely through Svarbhanu's body, Lord Vishnu revealed his power. With the Sudarshan chakra, Vishnu severed the Asura's head from his body. But Svarbhanu had already tasted Amrit. He could no longer truly die. His immortal head became known as Rahu. His body became known as Ketu. According to Hindu tradition, Rahu continued to hold anger towards Surya and Chandra for exposing him, and from time to time he attempts to swallow the sun or moon, giving rise to the sacred mythological explanation of eclipses. By now, the Asuras finally understood. They had been deceived. The nectar was gone. The Devs had regained their power, and the fragile alliance between them shattered instantly. Fury spread through the Asura armies. They had pulled the serpent. They had endured the churning. They had stood beside the Devs through the danger. Yet the nectar had escaped them. A great battle erupted between the Devs and Asuras. But now the Devs were no longer weak. Strengthened by Amrit and guided by Lord Vishnu, they fought with renewed power. The heavens that had once fallen into darkness began to recover. Indra regained his authority. Lakshmi had returned. The Devs had regained their strength. Cosmic order was restored. But the deepest meaning of the story was not simply that one side won and the other lost. Because Samudra Manthan is not only a tale of gods, demons, and magical treasures, it is also a mirror of human life. Think about the ocean of milk. On its surface, it appeared calm, but deep within it were treasures, dangers, poison, and nectar, all hidden together. In many spiritual interpretations, this ocean is compared to the human mind. Inside, every person are hopes, desires, fears, anger, wisdom, compassion, and ego. But we do not always see what is hidden within us until life begins to churn us. A challenge appears, a loss happens, a dream demands effort, a relationship tests us, a moment of truth forces us to look within. And often the first thing that rises is not peace. It is frustration, fear, pain, our own inner poison. That is why Shiva's role in this story is so powerful. Lord Shiva does not destroy the poison by pretending it does not exist. He faces it. He contains it. But he does not allow it to spread through the universe. That is a lesson as meaningful today as it was in the ancient story. Pain exists. Anger exists. Disappointment exists. But strength is not passing our poison onto everyone around us. Strength is having the courage to hold it, transform it, and protect others from it. Shiva becomes Nilkanth, not because he avoids suffering, but because he accepts responsibility when everything is at risk. And only after that act of sacrifice do the treasures begin to rise. Only after poison is faced does Lakshmi appear. Only after struggle does Amrit emerge. Lord Vishnu's role teaches another lesson. When Mount Mandara sinks, Vishnu does not abandon the effort. He becomes Kurma, the foundation. When the nectar is stolen, he does not surrender. He becomes Mohini, wisdom, strategy, and divine intelligence. Sometimes the solution is not greater force. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is support. Sometimes it is knowing when to stand firm and when to change form. And Goddess Lakshmi's appearance carries its own message. Prosperity does not remain where arrogance rules. It returns where balance, humility, and dharma are restored. The story began with Indra's carelessness toward a sacred gift. It ends only after a long journey of correction, effort, and grace. Samudra Manthan is remembered as one of the grandest stories in Hindu tradition because it contains the full journey of existence, pride, and downfall, enemies working together, a mountain sinking, a divine protector holding the foundation, poison threatening the world, Shiva's sacrifice, Lakshmi's arrival, the nectar of immortality, and Vishnu restoring cosmic balance. But perhaps its greatest teaching is this: when life churns your world, do not assume that the first darkness to appear is the end. The poison may rise first. The struggle may feel endless. The reward may seem lost, but with courage like Shiva, steadiness like Kurma, wisdom like Vishnu, and devotion toward Dharma, even the deepest ocean can reveal its nectar. This is the story of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean, the birth of Nilkanth, and the eternal reminder that sometimes the path to immortality begins with the courage to face poison. If this sacred story inspired you, share in the comments which Hindu story you would like to hear next. Until then, may wisdom guide your choices, courage steady your heart, and divine grace light your path. Om Namah Shivaya.